Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. My name is Ross Benjamin. I'm your host, and it's Thursday afternoon, October the 6th, and I'm joined every Thursday afternoon by Mr. Kyle Hunter, one of the finest handicappers you'll find anywhere on the internet, and you can find him most of all at gamblersWORLD.net. And in the top right-hand corner, you're just seeing a thumbnail of Mr. Doug Upstone. Doug went through a procedure yesterday, a surgical procedure at that, on his face. So we're giving him time to heal here. We don't want to scare anybody. Doug, I hope
right.
you're feeling
Hey,
better,
nobody
man.
wants to look at Elephant Man, so let's just, it's just better to cover it up for a day at least and see what happens.
Yeah.
So everything's good, but it's just, in all honesty, just didn't want to make a spectacle of us. We got two other handsome gentlemen here, and so with that being the case, let's go with that for a day, and back on Monday, back to normal.
Well, thank you for your kind words, buddy. And I hope you feel better by the time Monday rolls around, and I'm sure you will. Kyle, how are you, man?
Doing well. Ross, your Syracuse Orange did let me down last weekend. I will say that.
Yes, they did, buddy.
That was disappointing effort, but it's good. It's good to have Doug still here, and we can hear his analysis the same, even if we can't see him, we can still hear his analysis on the games, and it's always good to chat with you guys.
Absolutely, and good to chat with you as well, Kyle. And just a friendly reminder, folks, we sort of had an uneventful wild card round in Major League Baseball. All four teams with a sweep, and we begin the American League and National League divisional series starting Saturday, excuse me. And we have our $199 Major League Baseball postseason package up right now at gamblersWORLD.net. Several of you have taken advantage of that already. And you're going to get the divisional round. You're going to get the AL and NL Championship Series, as well as the World Series for $199. And it's guaranteed, folks, whoever you purchase from, if you don't make a profit with that package, we're going to credit your account back that exact amount of your purchase price, which is $199. Again, folks, for those of you who have not subscribed, take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. There's no strings attached. There's no hidden agenda. You're just privy to the best sports betting podcast on the internet today. Again, I say that boastfully, but I also thoroughly believe that, and I'm biased, and I'm entitled to be, because it is my show. Anyway, all right, let's get right to the meat and potatoes here. Kyle, anything to surprise you what you saw in the Major League Baseball wild card round with all four series ending in 2-game sweeps?
I only had one play for the first couple days. I thought there would probably be a game 3 somewhere, right? We didn't think there'd be all sweeps, but I did have the Phillies under in the first game. Wheeler's an underrated pitcher. I think he's just so consistently good. Nola has kind of gotten more of the pub in the long run, but Wheeler, very consistently good pitcher. I think Phillies are a pretty dangerous team. That'll be a fun series coming up there. I think also the Brewers going out in 2 games was a pretty big surprise. Arizona's had a really nice season. The Brewers with a really good pitching staff. Kind of surprising that they couldn't get one win.
Yeah, it's especially in light of the fact, Doug, you're very familiar with the situation living there in Arizona. The Diamondbacks went into that wild card round having scored combined 3 runs in their last 4 games during regular season action, and it barely made the playoffs. And here they come out swinging against the Milwaukee Brewers. They really beat up Corbin Burns in game 1, that's for sure.
Yeah, they did, Milwaukee did it to themselves. And in the 2 games, I believe there was 5 different innings in which the bases were loaded with less than 2 outs, and they failed to score any runs in those innings. So basically, that was the series, in a nutshell, in terms of how it turned out. Arizona was more clutch in terms of hitting, and then I know people made a big deal about Tampa Bay, with the attendance and everything, and that's a whole nother thing. But it's the playoffs; you show up, and that just didn't seem to be the case, because there was no reason that Texas should be in better shape, because Texas lost their last game to lose the division. They had just played 7 straight road games, had to then fly cross country to Tampa Bay from Seattle, and then have to play to win a series against a team that had one of the best home records in baseball. So no excuses for Tampa Bay either. Just, we see this every year, all of a sudden teams just stop hitting for seemingly no reason. And that happens during the regular season, but it's obviously amplified during the playoffs.
Absolutely. And Nathan Eovaldi, who had been struggling down the stretch as well, threw an absolute gem against Tampa Bay. I guess you can make excuses for Tampa that they did have some injuries that really curtailed their chances at the end of the year. But having said that, I mentioned this yesterday on the show, and I got some critique from some of the listeners. Let's get to the football. But in any event, when you see a franchise like Tampa Bay, and they drew 19,000 people in game 1, and basically, if you put the Tampa Bay Lightning and put them in that same stadium, they could probably draw 35,000 a game easily. And it's sort of a contradiction of a warm weather climate adhering to a cold weather sport in hockey, yet a baseball hotbed that you could play 12 months out of the year. They can't draw for baseball. And be quite honest with you, they don't deserve a franchise. I know one of the comments I got was that they put forth a bill to try to build they were going to vote on to try to build a new stadium. I don't know. I mean, again, is that really going to make a big difference? Look what happened in Miami. They built a new stadium. They're still drawing, friends and family. So enough of that. Let's get to football. And we're going to start with Doug today because he is injured, and I don't want to put him out and make him wait too long. And he's going to be looking at the LSU and Missouri game. Right now, LSU, a 4.5-point favorite. The total in this game is 65. It goes at high noon Eastern time. Doug, the one thing that jumped out at me here, and Kyle as well, is we have a 2-loss team in LSU. And they're favorite on the road. Not only favorite, but favorite by 4.5. And I believe the line opened at 6 against an undefeated nationally ranked team in Missouri. Missouri getting a lot of love this week in terms of betting trends, public betting trends, that is. Doug, what say you on this matchup?
Yeah, that is certainly the case. This game is going to be on ESPN at 12, so it's an early starter. So that will be, all the more interesting from that standpoint. But I'm looking, that is, LSU with 2 losses before October. Okay, nobody counted on that, and nobody counted on Missouri to be 5-0 at this point of the season. But LSU, its defense, they're allowing 31 points per game on the season, and that includes holding Grambling to 10. So obviously against better competition, it goes up from there. They're getting whipped in all areas, Ross and Kyle, from that standpoint, giving up 429 yards per game, which is 117th nationally. Now their offense with Jaden Daniels is just absolutely fantastic. They're number 4 in total offense at over 500 yards a game and 7th in scoring nationally. So their offense is fantastic. Now, Missouri, they faced a softer schedule than LSU. But like I said, nobody expects them to be 5-0 at this point. Defense is solid, not great, but solid at 20 points per game. They had a non-conference opponent that was pretty weak, and they're not going to hold LSU to that few points. Now, as good as Jaden Daniels is, in my opinion, and if he's the number 1 quarterback, which I believe he is in SEC, number 2 then is Brady Cook. Okay. Cook has talented wide receivers, a true, what I would almost say like LSU quality wide receivers, if not better. He's an extremely accurate passer, completing almost 75% of his passes, and they are 6th nationally in yards per pass attempt. Cook just recently broke the SEC record for pass attempts without an interception. The home crowd's going to be rocking in Columbia. In this one, I'm going to take, and they're getting a lot of love, but I'm going to go with the home dog in this one because home teams like Missouri, after going over the total by 21 points or more in the last 3 games that have won 80% or more of their games, when they're facing a team with a winning record, they are an amazing 36-6 against the spread since 2019. Give me Mizzou to get the job done over the Tigers of LSU.
All right, Doug likes Missouri plus the 4.5 is the official pick here on the show over LSU, and that's as a home underdog. I don't know, Kyle. This one looks fishy to me. It looks like a sucker play. They're begging you to take the home underdog, and I don't mean that disrespectfully toward Doug, because I could be 100% wrong. Who knows? But Missouri's given up over 280 yards per game passing in their last three. Jaden Daniels is averaging around 342 a game in the air, 16 touchdowns against 2 interceptions, almost 300 yards rushing, and 3 more touchdowns on the ground. What say you on this one, buddy?
I think this is interesting because we had Clemson in the same spot last week where they had 2 losses. I did fade Clemson. Dabo Swinney, say what you will about him. I'm not a big Dabo Swinney fan, but Swinney does do a good job motivating his team, even in what should be a tough spot. I think we'll see, what happens with Brian Kelly in a game like this. Brian Kelly's certainly a very good coach, but this is a tough spot for them because they expected far bigger things out of the season than what they're probably going to be able to get at this point. I think the only thing I would disagree with Doug about here is I think Brady Cook might not be the second best quarterback. I think I'd probably say Jackson Dart would be the second best quarterback. Brady Cook really hasn't faced a lot of good defenses. Now, he's not going to face a good defense in this one either, to be fair. And Brady Cook is underrated, in my opinion. Before the season, if you had laid out all the quarterbacks in the SEC, he would have probably been chosen 10th or 11th or something like that. So I agree with the sentiment that he's much better than people would have realized. I think that Missouri's schedule to this point does concern me. South Dakota, Middle Tennessee, Kansas State, a pretty good team, Memphis, Vanderbilt. There's just not very many good teams there to be tested very well. I think Missouri will score. Burden is a tremendous wide receiver, and that really helps Brady Cook a lot. That guy's a game changer completely, one of the best wide receivers in the country. I don't think LSU can stop him. You remember before the season, Brian Kelly was talking about his LSU defense saying, we need to be better. I'm a little bit concerned. I see why he was concerned now. Like, this was a real problem. I didn't think that they'd be this bad. They're 120th is LSU in explosiveness allowed. So they're constantly giving up big plays. They've given up 27 plays of 20 yards or more so far this year, 14 plays of 30 yards or more. That's a real concerning sign for a secondary. I think Missouri will score quite a few points here. The question mark is, how many stops will Missouri get? Last week on our show, I mentioned LSU. I had LSU in that one. They ended up blowing that lead in the fourth quarter. And I remember saying, boy, I want to take the over, but 67.5 is really high. Guys, I should have taken that over because they had that at about halftime. So that was the right thought to start with. LSU here, really tricky side to bet, in my opinion. I'm going to have to just give a lean again to the over. LSU is much more talented than is Missouri, but I understand where Doug's coming from. This is a massive game for Missouri. Here's a shot for them, national showcase type spot. LSU, what are you going to get from them? I'm not sure. I think both teams will score points, so I like the over.
Yep. So Kyle has a lean toward the over. Can't blame him with the points that LSU's given up. Missouri's shown a fabulous upside offensively this year. LSU putting up giant numbers offensively despite their 3-2 record. I would say the comparison with Clemson last week as a 2-loss team is a favorite on the road. There's a big difference between playing Syracuse, that was unranked at 4-0, who had played a really soft schedule. Yes, Missouri hasn't played a murderer's row of a schedule, but they did beat Kansas State, who I feel is a very good team. It took a 61-yard field goal at the end of the game. I don't know, guys. I always have this thing with me is I always trust the odds makers more than I do the general public or for the top 25, the people who vote in the top 25, the AP poll, for example. So that's where I'm going with this. I hope Doug wins. I hope he always wins. I just have my doubts in this one. It just looks too good to be true to me, and it looks like they're begging you to take the home underdog here. But we'll see, Doug.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, the line keeps coming down, and from that, so that there's certainly less value with Missouri than there was on Saturday or on Sunday or Monday. From that standpoint, I just think that I've watched them play now 3 different times, and I'm just impressed with what I see. And I'm not going to say that Jackson Dart isn't a good quarterback, but I've just been really impressed with the throwing ability of Cook. And that's more than anything. I was surprised initially, and he just keeps it going. So I think they have a legitimate shot. I'm not saying that LSU doesn't win the game. If they win by 1, 2, 3 points, I would certainly not be surprised. But I think Missouri's going to hang with them.
Doug.
Yeah. Right.
I want to say
Go ahead.
one more thing. There's probably going to be somebody in the comments here on YouTube saying we forgot about Spencer Rattler. So Spencer Rattler's had a very good season as well.
Oh yeah, Spencer. I agree. Spencer Rattler's very good. I would not put him though 1 or 2 myself.
Yeah, he's a different quarterback than Brady Cook. It's kind of hard to say who's a better quarterback. They both had really good seasons thus far. Real quick question for you guys: LSU in this spot, 2 losses. Obviously, they play a hard schedule the rest of the way. If LSU wins out, do we think LSU still has a chance to get in the playoffs?
If they win out, do they even have a chance to be in the SEC title game? Their losses came against
Florida State out of conference.
Florida State's out of conference. If the Pac-12 wasn't as formidable as it is right now, I would say yes. If they win out, you have to think they're going to have a legitimate chance to be in the SEC championship game. So if they win out, that means they're going to win the SEC. You certainly can make a strong case for that. I think it's a moot point. It would be nice. It's a hypothetical question that I'm going to answer with a hypothetical answer, and that's I don't see LSU winning out. I do sort of like them in this spot. But again, the defense concerns me. Doug, your thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, I'm not sure they can win at Alabama, so that's one thing. I'm not saying they won't, but that would certainly be one that would, and that's going to be a difference maker maybe for both teams. In terms of how this all plays out in the Western Division. Again, same thing. I mean, the defense it's brutal. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And they're getting whipped at the line of scrimmage as well. I mean, it's one thing if you got a bad pass defense and then, but you're fairly good against the run. They're not really good at anything right now.
And a lot's going to have to do with, Kyle, in my opinion, and then we'll hear your thoughts on your own question, is how Florida State finishes. I mean, if Florida State finishes 12-0, wins the ACC championship game, ends the year at 13-0. Now all of a sudden that Florida State loss doesn't look as bad. But the thing that bothers me about that Florida State loss was the lopsided nature of which it occurred. Now I know it was a good game for a half, and they were right there at the half, but they got blown out in the second half. So anyway, answer your own question.
I think they would have a shot if they won out. I don't think they're going to win out. I just think, the SEC West is kind of open. Alabama's not as good as they have been. Alabama has the defense. LSU has the offense. I don't love LSU's chances in that game either. I just think it's kind of an interesting hypothetical because the SEC is always going to get respect. And I mean, they've been very good year after year. You could say LSU's schedule the rest of the way isn't terribly hard other than this Missouri game and then at Alabama. They host A&M in the last game as well. But I think with this kind of defense, it's going to be pretty tough to win out.
Yeah, I don't think enough people are talking about A&M. I know they got ambushed at Miami, but they've since rebounded and looked really well since then. We'll know more about them on Saturday when they entertain Alabama. It's awful odd to see Alabama as just a 1.5 point favorite against anybody, but that's the case in College Station. But all right, we're going to discuss Notre Dame and Louisville for the second time this week. Jesse gave his early opinion on it on Tuesday, and I'm interested to hear what Kyle has to say about this game. Louisville right now is 6.5 point underdog in this game. I'm not. I don't have the total written down for whatever reason, but Notre Dame, their third tough game in a row. They faced Ohio State 2 weeks ago. They lose at the Horn. Then they play last week another thriller against Duke in a game a lot of people were perturbed with, who had Duke, because Notre Dame scores that late touchdown when all they needed was a field goal. They were in field goal range. So what's your thoughts? I mean, is Notre Dame going to be up to the task 3 weeks in a row? And against, for the third straight week, they're playing an undefeated opponent and nationally ranked opponent.
Yeah, I think that the question mark is the scheduling spot for Notre Dame. You know, they have to get up for several games in a row. I have no idea what Jesse said earlier this week, but I am going to be curious to see if we agree or disagree here on this one, because I respect Jesse. He's a great handicapper as well. You know, I'll be honest with you. I think Louisville is not as good as some people think based on who they've played. I mean, Louisville last week, that was a terrible performance against North Carolina State. NC State's not very good. You know, this is a Louisville team that, if you look at their body of work, if you just look at their stats on offense, it looks like they're really good. They look very good. But look who they've been getting explosive plays against. Big plays against Georgia Tech when they came back and beat them. That doesn't look great when Georgia Tech loses to Bowling Green. Then Murray State, an FCS team. Indiana, not a very good team. Boston College, they ran up all kinds of big plays against Boston College, who has really weak defense. And then they played NC State and didn't look very good at all. Plummer with some terrible decisions in that game. That interception when they had a chance to go down and take the lead, about as bad of an interception as you'll ever see. So while Louisville on paper looks good, I'm not convinced they actually are good. So the question mark here is, what kind of effort are you going to get from Notre Dame? Notre Dame, I'm convinced their defense is very good. They don't give up big plays. The secondary is kind of designed to not give up explosive plays. And really, I think Louisville, that's kind of what they have to have. They're not going to consistently just kind of go in small chunks down the field against Notre Dame time after time. I think they have to have big plays. I think Freeman is a good enough defensive guy that's probably not going to happen here. Also, Louisville kind of goes to what I was speaking about. Louisville 100th strength of schedule, according to Sagarin so far this year. Really weak strength of schedule. Notre Dame's 54th, so a pretty big difference. And if you look at a yards per play margin, Notre Dame is 6th best in the country, even having played a tougher schedule. Louisville is 14th. And like I said, they did run that up there against those weaker opponents. So in this one, I think Louisville's going to have a hard time getting those big plays. I think also, you know, Notre Dame, it was super impressive of them to come back at the end of the game after they kind of lost all the momentum. It's easy to root for a guy like Sam Hartman. That was so classy of him at the end of the game after Riley Leonard got hurt. Terrible injury there. I think Notre Dame with Estime will be able to run the football well enough, kind of grind this one out, wear down Louisville's defense. I'm going to take Notre Dame here -6.5.
Notre Dame -6.5 over Louisville. Coach Brom has done a nice job at his alma mater in the first year. They definitely overachieved. And I say that because not a lot of people thought they would be undefeated at this point and nationally ranked, but they are, and give them credit for that. You know, you can only beat the teams that are on your schedule. But I think they're in tough here. You know, at the other part of the equation with Notre Dame, Doug, next week a game with USC. And I could tell you right now, I'm telling everybody who's listening, I'm going to be on Notre Dame in that game. I don't care what the circumstances are, unless Sam Hartman gets hurt or they suffer a major injury. I mean, their running backs are 5 deep. The bottom line is that USC doesn't stop anybody, you know. But I'm a big Sam Hartman fan, Kyle. You know, he's taken a lot of heat for not putting up the huge numbers he did in his time at Wake Forest. But by the same token, he hasn't thrown an interception yet. He's playing within himself, and he's playing good complementary football. He's trusting his defense. He knows he has a good running game, and he's making decisions based on the score of the game. It's not about him. So I really like the way Sam Hartman's playing right now. But Doug, your thoughts on this matchup?
There's no question from a talent standpoint, Notre Dame is the better team, as Kyle said. And I think besides all the points that have been made, I think if Notre Dame opens up the offense a little bit more in terms of the passing game, I think they could actually maybe open this up pretty good from that standpoint. Now, Louisville, at least by numbers, has been, pretty good against the pass, only 218 yards allowed. But I just have a sense that Notre Dame's going to go, they've been overly towards the running game, in my opinion, and not enough of the passing game. So I think they're different. I think they're like 62% running. I think it's going to be closer to 50 because also realizing next week they're going to have to probably throw the ball, against USC. Yeah, they maybe run it down their throats, but they need to open up the offense and just get a little bit more from it. So I think they actually end up doing that. And because of that, I just think their overall talent will take over, especially about midway of the third quarter. And then they kind of just start pulling away in that case.
Yeah, well, all good points, Doug. And Kyle, the Sam Hartman thing that I just talked about, agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think the other point about Sam Hartman is his wide receivers at Notre Dame have not been very good. They've had a lot of guys injured. I know some of them are coming back here in this game. But if you were to pick the single biggest weakness on the Notre Dame team, I think Doug would probably agree, the wide receivers, pass catchers would have to be their biggest weakness. They have a really good team in general. So Hartman's not going to have those star receivers and put up massive numbers, but he's done what he's had to do.
That big lumbering tight end has done a hell of a job too. I can't remember his name, but boy, oh boy, he's made some fabulous catches and actually has got down the seam and stretched the field a little bit too. So, all right. So Kyle likes Notre Dame earlier this week. Jesse likes Louisville. We'll see what happens. So going head to head there. And Doug, he likes the Missouri Tigers plus the points at home. I disagree with him, but we'll see. I mean, and when we disagree, it's always respectfully. And I would say that every time that happens, it's going to be 50-50 at the end of the year in terms of results. So let's keep an eye on what happens in those two games. I'm going to look at Kentucky and Georgia. Georgia right now is a 14.5-point favorite to total, 47.5. I've been hearing all week long, Georgia is, and rightfully so. Look, this isn't the dominating Georgia team we've seen the last 2 years. This isn't what we perceive to be a team that's 5-0, number one in the country, back-to-back defending champions. They're not playing like such, right? Because they're not blowing teams out. And last week, I said on the program, I reluctantly took them as a 14.5-point favorite against Auburn. And I sort of went against everything I believe in because I said the line looked fishy. It opened at 16 and went down to 14.5. And how the heck is Auburn going to score in this game? Because to that point, they haven't shown an ability to put up any kind of consistent offensive numbers at that. So, and then Auburn comes out and runs the ball for 200 yards last week against Georgia, which was a surprise. But keep in mind, they only threw for 86 yards as well. Georgia's been hearing all the whispers about exactly what I just talked about. People saying they're not as good. They're not deserving of number one. They're number one only on reputation alone. And Kentucky's coming in off a very impressive blowout win over Florida last week. And again, you would think that this is going to be a concern because Florida ran for over 300 yards last week against who did they play last week? Kyle, help me out here. 33-4.
Kentucky ran for that. Yeah.
Kentucky ran for over 300 yards. All right. And then Georgia, they're often that uninspiring win against Auburn, like I just alluded to, but it was on the road. And they still outgained the Tigers in that game, 420 to 307. Kentucky, first 5 games have been at home. Their only road game was at Vanderbilt. I wouldn't exactly say that's a stern test like they're going to face this week. In Kentucky, the last 6 games against Georgia, losing them all and only averaging 7 points per game against Georgia. Guys, for no other reason than I'm just going to go against public sentiment here and just have my intuition tells me that Georgia is going to play their best game they have all season to this point. And I'm going to lay the points here with Georgia minus 14.5 over Kentucky. Kyle?
A tough game as far as the side for me because if you look at the stats so far this year, it's hard to lay the points here with Georgia because Georgia really hasn't been that good. If you look at the talent rankings and know what you think the upside of these two teams should be, you say, man, 14.5 might not be enough points. I think this might be a little bit harder spot for Kentucky based on the way that they just beat up Florida. They got to feel pretty good about themselves. Now, they should certainly still be able to get up for a game like this. They're playing Georgia. I'm not suggesting they wouldn't. The question mark is Georgia's defensive front. Why are they giving up 3.97 yards per carry, 67th in the country? Really, to me, that's pretty inexcusable for a Georgia defensive front that has as much talent as anybody in the country, maybe other than Clemson's defensive line, but really, really good defensive line. Kentucky's going to try to run the football consistently. Devin Leary hasn't been very good at quarterback there for them. I think, this is tricky because, like you said, Ross, I feel like one of these times Georgia is just going to flip a switch and it's going to look amazing. The question is, which game is it going to be? I don't know which game it's going to be. I'd rather not bet a side here, to be honest. I would rather bet the under, thinking that Kentucky's offense will not have nearly as much success as they had a week ago against Florida. And Georgia, their offense really hasn't been that explosive. They play slowly. They have the new OC, Bobo. He hasn't done a great job with being unpredictable there as the OC. So I don't know that anybody's going to score a lot of points in this game. The total has been bet down, but that would still be my lean.
Yeah, in Kentucky, if they're going to have a legitimate chance to win, I don't think they're going to bank on the fact that they're going to run the ball down Georgia's throat. Now, Georgia got run on last week, and Kentucky, like I just said, 329 yards rushing last week against a Florida defense that was highly touted going in. But I think if they're going to have a realistic opportunity to win, yes, they have to run the ball effectively. But B, Devin Leary's going to have to be a lot better, Doug, than he's been so far.
Yeah, the thing with the Georgia defense that I've noticed is that what Auburn did pretty well was get the ball quickly outside the tackles. And so that seems to be where there has been a weakness with the Georgia defense to this point. Kentucky is more of a between the tackles running game. So from that standpoint, I think that plays more into their strength. The other thing that you mentioned, Ross, is this, and this is from the Ross Benjamin playbook, by the way, I just thought I'd add that, is that the number's sitting at 14.5. So that's basically inviting you to take Kentucky. Okay. I mean, it's on even though 14 is not a great number in college, 14 is a better number than it is in the pros in terms of a key number. So with that in mind, to me, they're like begging you to take it here, because if that even goes to 14, there would be a flood of Kentucky money, a flood of Georgia money coming into that. So I think the play here is Georgia, and all Georgia has to do is show up, because that's one thing they haven't done in the first half in literally any of their games.
Every game. So every game so far.
Right.
Yeah.
And so home game in a situation with a team that is undefeated. Yeah, they should be better. And, everything points to them being better, but it's a really good spot for Kirby Smart to get the motivation going and to swear like a sailor, like he normally does with his team, and just get all these guys ready to go. And I think they'll show up and win probably by somewhere in the 17 to 20 point range.
All right, our official picks: Georgia minus 14.5 over Kentucky. Kyle likes Notre Dame minus 6.5 over Louisville, and Doug Upstone likes the Missouri Tigers as a 4.5 point home underdog on Saturday over the other Tigers, the LSU Tigers. So, Doug, tell the folks why they should buy from you over at DocSports.com. Great handicapping site that's been around for 53 years, folks. Longevity speaks volumes, and Doug's one of their top handicappers there, and we're lucky to have him. But, Doug, tell the folks what you may have coming up, and also anything else you want to share with the audience.
Absolutely. Just completed my card before showtime here. And so I ended up with a grand total of 10 plays, 6 in college, 4 in the NFL. The last 2 weeks, winning weeks in the NFL, hit both best bets. So that's really strong. And I got a 6-unit play on Saturday and a 5-unit best bet on Monday then too. So we have that. College football had a really good week the week before, not so good last week. I like the card better this week. Just some things just didn't go my way last week. So, hey, you know what? That's part of it. We've all been through it, but I do like the card. I got a play on Friday night. Wanted to have a play tonight, but wasn't able to get one for Thursday. But Friday night got a play of the two that are on there. Plus, I have a 6-unit best bet and a night game going on Saturday. So that continues to do that. That's up. And then along with that, also have props still rolling on props, 28, 18, 60 some percent, up over $2,500 on props, primarily focused now more on football with hockey coming. Okay. Next week, baseball props, I think, are more difficult this time of year. Not to say there isn't any that you can make. I just find it, shorter cards. Okay. The situational of how managers handle certain pitchers really changes. So I think it's a little tougher to do props from that standpoint. How about, I think Kyle's up next. Kyle, what you got going?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, Doug, I think 6 must be the number so far. I have 6 college football plays ready to go for this weekend. I think I'm probably going to add 1 or 2 more, so stay tuned on that. But I have 6 totals, all totals plays up for this weekend. As far as NFL, I have 1 up for Thursday night here and then 1 for Sunday. I had a kind of bad weekend in college football last week, 2-4. I got chirped by quite a few people, like, hey, you hit 70% each of the last 2 years. What's going on? As I've said before, I'm not going to hit 70% all the time. Nobody's going to hit 70% all the time. If you want to buy from somebody who's going to guarantee 70%, then you're just going to buy from somebody who's lying to you. So we're going to try to grind out profits, be transparent about it all the time. And then Sunday, guys, I have to say, just a quick vent. I was 2-0, thought I was about to be 3-0, had Kansas City, and then Mahomes went down at the 1-yard line. So it was like, I was almost had the sweep. Man. I'm not going to be that guy that says that, somebody called it in or something, because I understand why he went down. It's just, obviously it was so close to being a sweep. So a good weekend in the NFL, 42-30 run in the last 72 NFL plays and 78-39 in college football. So it's been going well in football.
Yeah. That's 67%, and people who complain that you're off a bad week. Look, everybody, I don't care how good you are, not only are going to have a bad week, but they're going to have a bad stretch. You just have to grind it out. You got to look at somebody's long vision track record like Kyle has and stick with them, folks. That takes me to this. You can get his college football package right now, the rest of the season for $4.99. right through the championship game, the NFL right through the Super Bowl for $5.99, or both college football and the NFL for $7.99. You could do the same with me as well. 4-2 in college football last week, just a tremendous run right now I'm on, and I'm savoring every minute of it because 16-3 over the last 3 weeks with my college football picks. And then if you go back to December 2nd of last year, 39-16, good for 71% with my college football picks. When I go back to December 2nd, obviously Gamblers World hasn't been up that long. We just started in mid-July, but that's all documented by Sports Capping, who does a great job at that. My college football and NFL picks combined since September 14th are 26-9, coming off a 4-2 week in the NFL. I got 2 picks up for tonight, 1 in the NFL, 1 in college football, folks, at gamblersworld.net. You can get it right now. I got 4 up for Saturday in college football, probably going to add a 5th, and I'll have at least a minimum 4 plays up in the NFL on Sunday. Major League Baseball, don't forget about that, $199 for me and Kyle right now on our Major League Baseball postseason package. And it's guaranteed that if we don't make a profit, we will credit your account back that $199, and you could use that toward any future purchase at any time on any handicapper you wish. My Major League Baseball, 14-7 the last 21, 47-26 the last 73. All sports, 39-15 the last 54, and 87-51 since August the 4th. Somewhere around 63%. So a lot of good things happening with me at gamblersworld.net, with Kyle at gamblersworld.net, and with Mr. Doug Upstone at docsports.com. Doug, what do we want them to do with the like button that they're seeing underneath?
Well, I just suggest to pound it, and I would maybe even consider a hammer, okay, and just really just go to town on it.
There you go. Hammer that like button, folks. It's a small token of your appreciation for all the work, time, and effort and preparedness that we put into this program. I mentioned to subscribe if you haven't already. You'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your video box if you're watching on your PC. Most of you, just click on that, I should say. Most of you are on your mobile device, and you'll see a black subscribe button underneath. Just click on that, and this goes for people who have subscribed already. And if you're not subscribed, take one extra step further. Go into your YouTube settings and click on that notification alert bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our podcasts going up on our great channel right here. I'd like to thank each and every one of you folks. Yes, we surpassed 11,000 viewers last week. We also hit a milestone of over 1 million views since this show began 3 years ago. We can't thank you enough. You're the reason why this show still exists and the reason why it's become so popular. Until the next time, for Doug Upstone, Kyle Hunter, and Ross Benjamin, take care. By the way, live tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock Eastern time, new time slot with Jesse Schule and Sean Higgs. You can chime in with all your comments, questions. We'll get to as many as we can, time permitting. And don't forget that 3 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow with our live show. Until the next time, folks, take care and God bless.